So today we're going to look at a genus of evergreen trees and shrubs called Illicium. And Illiciums flower in the spring and in the summer, and some flower in the autumn. So today we're only going to look at 4 separate species. The ones we're going to look at today come from China, although there are species that come from Mexico and Florida, which flower rather earlier in the year. They're perfectly hardy in our climate, and some are shrubs and some, as we'll see, grow into trees. And this is Illicium merrillianum. And this is a large shrub or small tree perhaps. It has these clusters of bright red flowers that only open just a little bit. They don't open out fully, and the reddest bit of the flower is right at the tip of the petals. You see that over there. And this particular species has very nice reddish new growth. Some of it's already turned, but bronzy red new growth is another attractive feature. And as you can see, it's absolutely covered in flower, and the shrub holds its flower really quite nicely, so you can see the flowers from a distance. And that, I'm afraid, isn't true of all the species of Illicium. This one we have in propagation, and merrillianum will soon be, hopefully, on the Bernkoos website. Certainly for early June, this is a really impressive shrub that wasn't really known about until probably 15 or 20 years ago, and that's about when this plant was planted. And here is another taller and rather more tree-like species that was discovered by Krug Farm Nurseries only in 2007 in northern Vietnam, really quite close to the Chinese border. And this is Illicium griffithianum. Nobody's quite sure if it's a true form of the species or just a form of the species, because so little is known about these Illiciums. This one also has coppery new growth and reddish flowers, but unlike merrillianum, it rather hides its flowers within its foliage. And when you look into the center of the tree, you can actually see rather more flowers than you can looking at this tree from a distance, when you might well think that it was not actually in flower at all. Now, apparently in the wild, this comes in 2 forms, and there are forms with white flowers and there are forms with red flowers. And again, they're ball-like, but they don't actually open out in full. And the flowers themselves are, when they're fully out, a bit more pointed than merrillianum, although until they come out, they're rather more ball-like. So there are just as many flowers on this species as the first one we looked at, but it doesn't make anything like as good a show. This tree is around about 20 years old, but it's only started flowering fairly recently. And as far as we know at the moment, it is the largest growing and tallest tree in the genus Illicium. And this is Illicium majus. And you can see quite clearly that it is going to be a really quite enormous tree eventually. And when we look closely, you might not have thought this tree was in flower at all. When you look closely, it has white ball-like flowers, but unlike the other species, the ball-like flowers appear from the leaf nodes, the old leaf nodes in the branches. So only when you look up into the center of the tree do you begin to see these sort of yellowy white flowers opening up. And that makes it not a great spectacle, but it certainly makes it pretty unusual. And when you see a bare stem with a gigantic flower on like that, it does make you wonder at the beauty of nature and the variety and versatility of nature. This has quite nice bark, almost magnolia-like bark, if you saw it without looking up. But it's a tremendous tree, and one which so far we've not been able to propagate, although I suspect this one may grow better from seed now that we've got a tree that's semi-mature and clearly flowering a great deal more than it ever used to. Here is another Chinese species of Illicium. This is Illicium lanceolatum, quite obviously referring to the lanceolate leaves. And this is a much smaller and rather more manageable shrub, but it has very beautiful flowers which are sort of orangey red. And unlike the other three species of Illicium that we've seen so far, this one has flowers that open out flat when they're fully out. This is only about the second time it's flowered, and it really is very pretty. Quite how big it's going to go, I wouldn't like to say as yet, but it's clearly more of a shrub than a tree. And in the wild, apparently it can be dark red, or it can be pink, or it can be a mixture of the two, as we've got here. Quite a different sort of shrub. And today we've looked at 4 species, but we need to make another video in the spring and another video in the autumn. Illicium anisatum and the American or Mexican Illicium floridanum and Illicium mexicanum, they all flower in the spring. And there are other species, notably Simonsiae or Simon's eye. They flower later in the year, so we'll need to have another look at them again. But this genus has very good scent, although today, with it rather overcast, I'm not actually getting the scent as much as I might. And some of the more scented varieties seem to be flower in the spring and autumn. We didn't notice huge numbers of bees around these plants, but certainly scent is one of the great things they're noted for. And perhaps another plant that one might plant on a bank so that those flowers which are hidden within the tree can be seen more easily from underneath. An interesting group of plants. Caerhays has about 4 different varieties on the website, and you'll see a few pictures there. There's some nice yellow flowering ones which aren't yet out today. Illicium oligandrum is a great thing, but flowers a bit later in the year. Anyway, I hope that's whetted your appetite for something that's brand new in the plant world, hasn't been around for, with 1 or 2 exceptions, for more than 20 or 30 years. A plant that's well worth growing and certainly brightens up the summer.